Hello, welcome to the Holistic Healer Podcast, a podcast dedicated to all things holistic. I am your host, Cheryl Lee. Today's guest, Kendall from the Raw Advantage. He is a 19-year raw foodist, a holistic nutritionist, a raw chef, yogi, and athlete. We sit down today to discuss the importance of transition, emotional issues, falling off the wagon, Chris's triad cleanse, and so much more. Enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Holistic Healer Podcast. I am your host, Cheryl Lee, and today's guest is Kendall from the Raw Advantage. So excited. You have been a raw foodist for over 18 years. You are a holistic nutritionist. You are a raw chef. You're a yogi, you're an athlete, and you're just a blessing in this community. Like, your vibe is just second to none. So to me, you're a blessing in the community. So thank you so much for coming on and talking with me and my audience today. Super grateful.
Honor and pleasure. You do me very well. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and of course.
I wear different hats and feel just really, really blessed to be in service in this community and in this life. You know, it wasn't something I thought I'd choose, but sometimes things choose us, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's kind of where I wanted to start. Just for those who don't know you very well or haven't heard other podcasts with you, just maybe a little journey as to what got you to this present moment as the Raw Advantage and everything else that you are.
You know, the long one or the short
one? I like to know kind of like, what were you raised like in a vegan household? Were you, like, what was your journey to this point?
Sounds fun. Let's see. Well, I wasn't raised in a vegan household, but I was very, very blessed with very heart-centered, loving mother and father who provided everything they could and everything that I ever needed. I was really encouraged to follow my passions, no matter where they led. I would say blessed with good genes as well. My parents are amazing, beautiful, strong people. Yeah. And, I always wanted to just live through my passions in skateboarding, really. When I was young, I started skateboarding at 5 years old, and I don't remember life before it. But that did end up leading me to a place of ill health and, some troubles physically, mentally, emotionally, where I moved out when I was 17. I guess I'll start there. Moved out when I was 17, and my parents brought me up on, a lot of whole foods. I remember there always being fruits and vegetables around the house, and there was meat products and stuff like that. And we had our fast food treats and stuff like that. But when I moved out at 17, I was really just on a mission to become a professional skateboarder and live through that passion. And with that, that would have been in 1997. I'm 43 soon in August, but it kind of led me into thinking fast food was like the pinnacle of awesomeness. Like, I wanted to eat fast food all the time. And when I couldn't afford fast food, it was like ramen noodles, the little noodle packs.
Oh, yeah. Little packs.
Little noodle packs. That was my life. I remember my parents came and visited me in Vancouver, and they brought me to Costco and said, you can get anything you want. And I just got a case of noodles. I was like, yeah.
You scored. You hit the lottery.
I really thought so. And I could make it a dozen different ways. I thought it was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And, long story short with that, though, eating poorly and starting to drink a lot, that was prevalent in the skateboarding community, and also just moving out and living with like 9 friends in a 3-bedroom apartment, drinking, smoking weed, eating poorly, not sleeping well, and trying to skateboard at a really high level, which meant for me throwing my body downstairs and all the time hurting myself. It led to kind of a predictable decline in my ability to recover, and also in my self-worth and view of myself. And, by the time I was like 18 and a half, I didn't want to be on the planet anymore. My joints were aching. I was depressed. I'd go to bed wishing I wouldn't wake up. I remember being on airplane flights, literally wishing it'd crash. Like, I wished it'd crash. I had so much lack of love for myself and life in that moment that I didn't care enough about the people around me. It was crazy reflecting on it, and people around me probably didn't really notice it, because I was, get depressed when I was by myself and before bed. But during the day, I'd self-medicate and I'd put on a happy face, and I always like to tell jokes and have fun. So people really didn't notice it.
Yeah.
But I did, and I knew I needed something, because I just didn't feel okay. I didn't feel connected with life or myself or joy anymore. And I was always a joyous, like really happy, excited person.
Yeah.
The first thing I really found was yoga. And of all places, it was in Walmart in a bulk bin when they had the bulk bin VHSs. That ages me a little
Oh my
bit.
God.
You
Yeah.
know, aged me a bit. So
I remember that too. My goodness.
they had a lot, and like 99 cents a bulk bin. I'm like, awesome, let's try this out. So
Yeah.
I took on yoga. It really helped to center me. It helped with my physical body and my mental, emotional. To some extent, it definitely kind of had some waves.
Yeah,
But
for
it
sure.
also introduced me to yogic philosophy, you know, and karma and the impact that eating animals has on us on a mental, emotional, spiritual level. And that really woke something up in me, and it kind of brought in a new interest, nutrition. So I remember going to a bookstore, and one book jumped out as one of those other moments where it's just like, that was the only one there. I won't say it was glowing, but it might as well have been. And it was called Fit for Life. I don't know if you've ever heard that or read that.
Yep. Absolutely.
Beautiful book, right? And it really introduced me to the concepts of food combining, of, you know, sequential eating, of vegetarian, vegan, and raw food, and of holistics and a low fat kind of diet, you know, and that would have been in 99. And at that point, I took it on. I'm kind of an A-type. When I find something that resonates, like things really resonate or don't with me at times.
I'm like that
and
too.
It just hit me like a ton of bricks. And seriously, I can say since 99, I've probably had 5 cooked breakfasts because I just said, I'm having fruit for breakfast. And, you know, in the early part of that journey, I found like, wow, fruit for breakfast helps with hangovers, you know? And
right.
That was still where
the
I was
hangover
at.
Cure.
Exactly. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I can get out of my hangover way quicker. So longer story short, I started improving my diet incrementally, letting go of things, introducing new things. And over about a 4.5-year period, I went from, you know, fast food being the pinnacle and drinking and smoking every day to being high raw vegan and not really completely letting go of some of those, but them being very infrequent. And, you know, at that time, I still really just wanted to do this for skateboarding. All the stuff I was learning was for skateboarding and to be able to heal faster. And I noticed that I healed better. I just recovered better, felt better in my body, and things were looking up. But I progressively wanted to go more and more raw, but I didn't totally get it. I read some books at that time. There wasn't a lot. There wasn't YouTube. You know, it was a very different scene back then. And I found one book, you know, 2 by David Wolfe, actually, Nature's First Law, which reiterated at the end of every chapter, cooked food is poison.
Yep, I remember that one.
Which sadly, and I mean, I don't want to down talk about it, that book was completely word for word plagiarized. It's kind of sad to hear that, but anyways, I did get impacted by that. And then I read also his Sun Food Diet Success System, which kind of put a triangle of, you know, fat, greens, and fruit as like, you know, find your balance. But I never really understood the balance because it didn't really talk about like calories or volume. It didn't really clarify it. And I was eating more and more raw foods and I felt great, but I never could sustain it. Around that time, I actually wanted to become a vegan chef, but I didn't find a chefing school that would allow you to be raw during it. They wanted you to, you know, sample and cook meats and stuff. And they may have a vegan section, but you had to do the whole thing.
Right.
I wasn't willing to do that. So I instead turned to to nutrition. And so in 2003, I enrolled in CSNN, the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition. And it's a beautiful holistic program that really fit my needs at that point. I really went full high raw vegan. Like before that, I had some stuff that slipped in a little bit, and I really made that dedication at that point. And midway through that schooling, I went to a vegan health festival in Vancouver called A Taste of Health, which was actually the spring of 2004. And at that, there was 3 raw speakers, and I was really excited for that. And I went to one, and it was great, but I didn't remember too much of it. It didn't impact me as much as the next, which was with Dr. Doug Graham, who at that time, you know, he'd been a raw foodist for 28 years and was a keynote speaker of almost every raw event in the world for years before that. And I tell you, you know, I talked about that book glowing. He was glowing, and I'm not actually saying like in a figurative sense, like for me, he was literally glowing. And I used to have a history of, you know, magic mushrooms, and I'd go to nature and I'd look at auras. I'd kind of spark something in me. I could see auras on plants and animals. But he was the first person that I really saw light up in a sober state. And I was just like, every cell in my body, like I was saying before, was just like, yes, like listen to this guy, learn from this guy. And the rest of the event, I just spent time with him, and he was very gracious with his time. I went to all of his talks. he cleared things up for me, made it so simple and so concise.
Yeah.
The next day I went 100% raw, and I really met my purpose in that moment. It wasn't until that next morning that my heart center just burst open. I can't say it any other way. I had a Satori moment where I felt, not only felt, but knew I was connected with everyone and everything. And I felt the spark of love in every single thing. And I was walking down the street crying, thinking, this is what everyone needs to feel. And this is why I'm on the planet. And again, I just want to reiterate, before that, even in school, in the 5 years of training and like reading everything I possibly could, it was solely just for skateboarding. I had zero intention of using my nutritional knowledge as a career. I just wanted to be a skateboarder. Right. At that moment, I realized skateboarding is fun. I love it. I love the community. I feel so blessed to be a part of that family, but I want to share this message with the world. And my whole paradigm shifted. I completed my schooling. I stayed in touch with Doug. He was again gracious with his time. At that time, he had a support board, which went back 5 or 10 years, and you'd be on there hours every day. And I just soaked everything up I could.
Yeah.
So from there, it took about 4.5 years of applying the diet and procrastinating, fully acknowledging procrastination to come into my life, but to really get it also down really consistently and to go through enough where I felt very confident and competent to be able to share this and help people on a personal health journey level. And so in 2009, 2009, I went through an intense breakup where essentially it was kind of an ultimatum was put that I either grow up and get a real job and start caring about money as the motivating factor, or a big motivating factor, or I do what I figured and felt in my heart was my dream. And we broke up, and I was devastated. I couldn't even digest bananas for a few days. I was so devastated emotionally, because I really thought that was it. That was the relationship.
Yeah. Yes.
And after a few days of self-reflection and coming into it, I was like, if I gave that up, I'm going to start this. I'm not going to procrastinate anymore. And I tell you, 5 years of exploration with raw food poured out of me really quickly. And I wrote my first 2 books and started my website within a week. And I started that process. So since 2009, that kind of rounds out the story. I've just lived full time through serving others, sharing what I've grown through, sharing all the benefits and all the insights that others have taught me, and doing retreats, writing recipe books, continuing my knowledge and self-work, being blessed to be at festivals around the world. I've been to, I think like 13 or 14 festivals as a speaker, as a head chef, as a yoga teacher. I've run, I think, 15 of my own retreats since then, and been a part of probably another dozen retreats as a chef or a guest speaker, yoga teacher. And that's what I continue to do until this day. And I just absolutely love it and feel so blessed to see this family grow and to be a part of it and to help in any way with others on their health journey.
That's amazing. So we share a little bit of a background there, because when I got into raw food, I'm just about to be 51. So it's
I would have thought you were younger than me.
Oh, wow. Thank you. But at the time when I was, this was back in like the 90s too, it was like it wasn't like it is now, like not at all. And it was Doug who was I went through the Natural Hygiene Institute.
Yeah.
But through that, ended up going to Raw Stock, and that's where I met Doug. And then I ended up going and spending time with him in Seattle at his Food and Sport. I had him on the show, and it was like, we figured it out. It was 18 years ago, that we connected. And so now, almost 20 years later to connect again, it was just amazing. But the reason I say that is because I saw the same thing as you did in him. He was so vibrant and so knowledgeable, and like, he had the package. He was athletic, and he had health, and he glowed. He really did. He was, and he still does, he's still this absolutely glowing, amazing being. So so that's kind of cool. We kind of shared in that. So I've heard you talk before about you kind of got into the hygiene of this lifestyle initially as well. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about people who are entering into this lifestyle and I guess the importance of maybe the transitioning so that we come to success, because oftentimes if we get right into the hygiene of it, and we might have a fruit-based diet, for example, what I find is that there's a lot of failure with just dropping into that without doing a proper transition. So how do you feel about that?
I think that's a really great question and such an important topic. And, as many people as there are different ways of doing things, of course. And, as long as we're going in a direction, that's beautiful. some people I find, and probably the majority, would really, really benefit from a transition.
Mm-hmm.
I've met some people who, dive in and they have less of a rocky road than others who just dive in, and then others who just dive in and they have a really hard time. And, the old adage or saying, to your own self be true, like know thyself and thy own self be true, I think really rings true because, those that are kind of that A type that just dive into a pool, they may do a little better going at a bit of a faster rate. And if you have a chronic illness or you have an intense situation, that may be the route to go. And with that, I would always recommend having a lot of support,
Yeah, for sure.
Others who normally would wade in and take their time, they're going to benefit even more from respecting that aspect of self and taking their time,
Mm-hmm.
But the huge benefit of transition, I mean, I had a long transition myself,
Mm-hmm.
is that you establish new habits and you let go of
Right.
old ones and you create a new firm base. So if you're going from junk food eating to raw vegan and then you fall off and you go all the way back to junk food eating and smoking and cigarettes, that's going to be much more hard on your health, physical, mental, emotional, than if you have a firm base and you go, oh, I'm just gonna have some steamed broccoli instead because I know I enjoyed that before and that made the fix, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I really do think, all is perfect in its place. And some people seemingly do require even sharper contrast in order to come to the place where they feel like this is genuinely what I want,
Right.
because to me, that is often the defining point of somebody's success, or I won't even say failure, but rougher ride, is if they're doing things because they think they should and they guilt themselves about it and they judge themselves about it.
Yeah.
Or if they genuinely feel like, I'm worth it and this is amazing and this is what I want to do. And if they fall off, which most people do, it's very rare the individual that just goes raw and never goes back.
Yeah. We all have our stories.
Exactly. That they're patient and self-forgiving of themselves. And
to
me, that is like one of the main things I really want to bring to the table, to, be very patient, very forgiving, and, respectful of self. Because even though, like I said, in my journey, I came from a really dark place and came to a place where I was just like so connected and so much love with life and myself and others. Even in this past, 20-year journey or plus, I guess, since 99, I've had times where I've fallen on my face and where I doubted myself and I felt, like maybe life isn't worth it anymore, and life happens. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. So anything I can do to bring even more patience, self-love and acceptance is, that's the most I could ever wish.
Yeah, because I think that also too, I mean, we can get ourselves into this guilt shame cycle, where it's like we fall off, we get back on, we fall off, we feel the guilt and shame, and it just creates this cycle of kind of never really like starting on the path, because you end up kind of almost getting into a routine of doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I know you use, like, you're a raw chef, so you make some amazing food and you use the dehydrator for a lot of your food. And so do you feel that, like, in that transition, is there like someone who's looking to get into this lifestyle on a more purist level? So maybe more like they're looking to evolve into the hygiene. They're wanting to transition, but the dehydrator can kind of be a subject of debate for some people, because it's like, in a way, it's like creating, like, people will say, oh, well, you're just bringing your cooked food habits into the raw food space by creating meatloaf with lots of nuts and this type of thing. So how can we find balance?
That's a really great question, and the first thing that I'd really like to start with in that is acknowledgement of the attachment to those different ways of doing things and how it reflects upon what we think of ourselves, because if we think that eating a pure diet means we're a better person, or that eating a diet that isn't pure means we're failing, or that we're not as worthy, then we're probably going to have a heck of a lot harder time with it. And I've been in that myself, whereas if we can come from the place where there's absolutely nothing we can do or nothing we put in our mouth that diminishes our worth, our spirit, our loving self, that's going to have a much more profound effect than just eating the purest diet or eating chimichangas, That's why there are spiritual people walking the earth that have the most beautiful heart, that can change people's perspectives and energy fields just by being in their presence. And they may not be a raw Buddhist,
Right.
That said, I do also believe that eating a simple, pure, or just a simple, really healthy fruit and vegetable based diet brings us to the opportunity to come to our highest heights of, not only awareness, but also of our connection to self, spirit, animals, and each other.
Right.
It is one of the most raw things we can choose. It's a vortex of positive change, which I often say that brings so much up. I often say it's like shining a dang bright light. I mean, it's the light of the creator into our soul, and anything that vibrates at a lower level is going to come up either to be seen, felt, loved, accepted, and forgiven of ourselves and released, or we're going to feel that shame and guilt and fear and utilize whatever it is, food, sex, alcohol, thought patterns, to push it back down, to get murkier, to get more fermented and deal with later, So with all that said, I think, again, honoring yourself and honoring your needs and honoring what serves you the best to go in a direction is beautiful. It's amazing. And if that means that you're just eating mono meals, you're just juicing, or you're doing these things and you have that love and forgiveness and patience and acceptance in your heart for you and for others, that's amazing, beautiful, and will get you expeditedly on that path. If instead you feel that, having some dehydrated food or having some steamed vegetables or whatever it may be, the people that are raw flexitarians, that they'll have a weekend where they just go with their friends. If that really suits you and fills your needs and makes you feel more secure on your path, I think that's beautiful too. It's not a race. Sure. There are no medals. As much as some people make it a club, it's not a club. It's a family. And I love what Doug says. He says that everyone's a raw foodist. It's just some people choose to eat cooked food sometimes. And you know what? That's fine. That's if that's where you're at, that's beautiful. And I think celebrate that, celebrate yourself, and celebrate your direction, and that you're learning to take care of yourself even better. And know that there are other things you can do, the other things you can let go of, and other things you can grow with, not just raw food diet, but holistic raw food lifestyle that can bring you to even higher heights. And if you're aware of them and self-loving of them, it's untold the benefits you can get from them. So, it's, I like to always say that perfection's in the process. I don't think it's an end point. And I think that everything truly is perfect in its place. And it's just either our acceptance of that or denial of that and judgment of that dictates whether we're flowing with ease, peace, and love, or whether we're flowing with judgment, fear, and self-retribution.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel that I so resonate with what you just said, and that when you take on this lifestyle, you're kind of like opening yourself up to more consciousness in a way. And so we all have the invitation, but to also respect that everyone has their own unique journey, and what someone's journey is may not be for us, and to always stay in a non-judgmental, stance of that person. But kind of as long as there's a self-inquiry, I guess, of not using food to numb out, but if you're using it to actually truly, it just takes some asking of yourself, asking the why, always asking the why of what you're doing. And that will always the answers will lie within that,
Huge.
Yeah.
I can't speak or apologize, but
no, you go ahead.
To mention is, when you come to that place where you really recognize that feelings of discomfort and feelings of urgency and, painful feelings, they're there to be felt, and we really serve ourselves by allowing ourselves to feel those things without judgment, without fear, and just to recognize this is what's moving through me right now. How can I facilitate this process? Wow. It's not even just food. It's like when we bring that process into our lives, a whole new chapter of really learning how to serve ourselves and pay attention to our needs comes into play. And that's just as profound as raw food diet, right? It's in fact, it really bolsters the raw food diet and all of our bodily processes.
Yeah. And, when we look at holistic, holistic isn't just diet. Holistic is many things. And so I feel like it would be advantageous for people who start on this lifestyle, to really want to kind of look at the emotional side of this, to really honor whatever it happens to be, past wounds, traumas, these kinds of things as they come up, to just feel into it and not kind of be scared of it. Because on the other side of that is this amazing feeling of freedom that you get, not kind of being shackled to the emotional side, which I think can oftentimes keep people stuck because it's not comfortable. No one likes to be uncomfortable, but knowing if, people understand that through being uncomfortable, that's where the evolution lies,
That's where we grow, right? It's so
That's where we
true,
grow.
100%. It's
Yeah.
like if we have the perspective that being uncomfortable is bad and growth is
Yeah.
hard and scary, well, guess what? We're going to have a troubling time with it. But if we can realize
Yeah.
and accept that every aspect of growth comes through pushing ourselves and pushing through just enough discomfort that we can
Yeah.
recover from it, and knowing when we can push ourselves and knowing when we can't. And I often say that, when we start a raw food diet, we're just a little candle flame. We're just a little candle flame that can be blown up pretty easily, whether it's from our thoughts, our perspectives, or situations we're in, or other
Yeah.
people questioning us or doubting us. And sometimes it takes putting our hands around that and sheltering it, and making sure that we walk that narrow line until we build those habits and start to build that bonfire in order to get to a place where it's going to take a hurricane to blow us out.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So you have your own cleanse that you came up with, right?
Yeah.
And that is a combination of raw food, yoga, and affirmations, right?
Yeah.
If I'm
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing
And
that up. That's
so,
fun.
yeah. And so I love that because that is really, you're not just taking the diet. Like I'm really a big advocate for not just, a lot of us get into this for the diet, but
Yeah.
we can really stay stuck in the diet. And as I just said, there's so much more. We have to move our bodies. We have to look after our mental, emotional, and spiritual state. And all of these things are just as important as the other, to bring us to what it really means to be holistic and have holistic health, right? So
Absolutely.
in that cleanse, like, can you explain what that cleanse is and how you go about doing that for people?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. It's called the Rainbow Island Cleanse, and it was really born from inspiration through Kundalini yoga and raw
Okay.
food and mono meals. I didn't really mention, but not that long after I got that yoga VHS, I found a Kundalini yoga studio that offered free classes if you went at the
Wow.
chosen time of like 3:30 a.m. And so I went into that a lot, and it was a beautiful practice that I incorporated into my own, and really found a lot of benefits in energy awareness and being able to move energy. And, so when myself and my friend Ashley were playing around with different kinds of ideas of simplifying and cleansing, we just thought like, wow, like Rainbow Island, like all the colors of the chakras and all the
Yeah,
different
wow.
energies and perspectives and awarenesses that they each represent can bring you through a whole holistic mind, body, spirit cleanse. And that was the whole process where, the short of it is really offering a guidebook to dive into each of our energy centers. And if you're not comfortable with that, well, then it's just the different aspects of self and of life, one at a time, and nourishing and nurturing those within ourselves, body, mind, spirit, through the food, through the
Yeah.
mood, through the yoga movements that really facilitate energy awareness and movement in those parts. And also the affirmations or afformations, so we go into that. We have in the past done group Rainbow Island cleanses where we promoted it and had bunches of people together in the Facebook group all at once. We haven't done that for a while, and that will come back again. I actually intend to put that into work as a full online interactive course with a support network as well. But the last probably 5 years, mostly it's just been done on a self level and also through just talking with people one-on-one. But it's a book that includes videos for every single day for the yoga and the affirmations, and just kind of like a round kind of rounding out information on each aspect. And people can go through it at their own pace. And yeah, I love it. I'm happy you brought that up because it is something I've been thinking about putting more energy and time into again.
Well, oftentimes we think of a cleanse. We're like, well, we're going to do a juice cleanse, or we're going to do a water fast as a cleanse, or we're going to do a grape cleanse or a melon cleanse. But this is, when I heard that, I thought, oh, that sounds so amazing, because you're really bringing in, the raw food is so cleansing in and of itself. And then you've got the movement in there, and then the positive affirmations. I mean, that sounds like a beautiful experience, and something that at the end of that, it could be really transformative for someone.
Absolutely. It's interesting you brought that up, because when we created it, we also really were aware that many people do, short-term cleanses and protocols. And we wanted to bring an element of lifestyle into this so that while it is Rainbow Island Cleanse, essentially it could be Rainbow Island lifestyle. Like it incorporates mono meals, but it also does incorporate simple, 2-3 ingredient meals that digest incredibly well together, but also resonate on that specific frequency that we're aiming at. And we've done week long, 2 week long. I know people who've done over a month, and realistically you can incorporate everything you learn into your regular holistic lifestyle, because again, like I'm a really big champion of lifestyle over protocol. And that isn't to throw shade on protocol by any means. Everything, again, perfect in its place. But if we're looking to get consistency, competency, and, establish habits for the lifestyle, often we're best served by living lifestyle, if you get what I'm saying, rather than
absolutely. Protocol. So how long would something like that, how long do you normally run that for?
Usually, it is usually just a 1 week. And it goes through the 7 chakras in 7 days, and each day is dedicated to each. And many people, they go through it with us for the week, but then they incorporate it into their own lives, recognizing which areas they could put more time and focus into, because it does come with a quiz that basically kind of gets you to bring more awareness into which aspects that are represented by the chakras we could use more work on. So some people go through all 7, and then other people might do like day 1, a couple of days, day 2, 2 days. Maybe they don't feel like they need to do day 3. So they do 4 days, 4. And, and so again, it really can be incorporated at whatever pace and for however long you really want to do it. And it's just like a guide and structure for you to be able to incorporate into your own life.
Right. Is your, like the yoga asana practice, is that part of your daily routine, or does that make up a big part of your activity now for you?
It's at different points in my life, it has been different for me. And, there have been periods of time where I had a very dedicated practice, either at a studio or in my own house. More lately, I've been really inspired by animals, namely cats, my spirit animal, I'm a Leo, and how they move through life. When they're tired, they give a big stretch, they yawn, they move their body in the ways that they naturally feel inclined to, and they roll up and they take a nap. And then when they wake up, they stretch, they do a couple of asanas, they do their downward cat or upward dog, downward dog or cat. And I kind of have come into that even more and more, where throughout my day, I do various movements and postures and flows. But sometimes it's only for, 5 minutes or 2 minutes. And other times when I really feel it in my body, I go for it for half an hour. Or I haven't been to too many group yoga classes, nor have I actually put many on myself in the last couple of years with everything that's been going on in the world.
Right.
And often, amazingly, my longest self practices are when I'm leading classes, because then they're a set amount of time, but yoga in the greater sense, not just yoga postures, just as we talk about raw food isn't just diet, we're talking about raw lifestyle and yogic lifestyle. It's an inseparable part of my life, yoking into it and bringing it into my awareness and bringing it into my relationships. It's a forever practice.
Yeah, for sure. And so I would assume that your spiritual practice or your spiritual hygiene, you incorporate that into your life as well. I kind of just feel, as we talked about earlier, when you kind of go down this path, it just kind of organically happens. Like lights keep coming on to kind of push you in that direction of like, oh, I should maybe sit down and do some meditating. I should write positive affirmations. All these things kind of start coming up to the surface to be able to use in your life. Do you have a spiritual meditation practice that you incorporate into your lifestyle?
Really, I see no separation. I don't think we can separate ourselves from it. I don't think anyone's more spiritual than anyone else. It's just some people are more aware of their spirituality.
Yes.
And, so I remember and I forget, just like everyone, but my practice is in essence really revolving around awareness and where am I coming from, and am I creating separation or am I creating more unity? Am I coming from heart space? And I have a mantra that I say, breathe love. Every time I feel discord, I come back into breathing love into my heart and breathing it out for everyone else. And again, I forget, like everyone, and sometimes I come into my own space and I'm not practicing it as much as I'd like. And I forgive myself and I remember and I bring that awareness back to my heart and I go back there, and so that'd be my practice.
I love that. It's just you, I mean, the awareness sometimes is just that's enough. I mean, you have the awareness, so it's there
Yeah.
just because of the awareness, you know? So that's really beautiful too. So I do have a question that I ask all of my guests, and so I'm going to ask it to you. And the question is this: unprepared. What is your authentic life print? What is your unique expression in the world as Chris Kendall?
That's a really fun question. I think childlike wonder and coming from a place of genuine desire. Like I heard you mention, like, I need to do affirmations or I need to do stretching. My genuine impression for myself is to come from a place of genuine want, and to
Yeah.
honor that in myself, and to hopefully be a bit of a mirror to others of the benefits of childlike wonder and
Mhm.
patience and self-love, forgiveness and authenticity. And that's what I strive for. And as I mentioned, I forget sometimes and I don't always reflect that, but I try and come back to that as much as I humanly can and be a mirror for others so they can see that in themselves and see the value that they bring to the world and how being in that light can really bring us up and bring everyone else up.
Yeah. Well, when we first got on, part of the reason why I said you're such a blessing is because you're a blessing. But the other thing is because, when I see you, I can just see that inner child. You are so well connected to that. And it's really this place of kind of play and wonder. And it's not even really anything like watching your cool, Instagram shorts that you do. It exudes out of you, and it's very apparent that you are really connected to that playful, like, little boy inside of you, which is just and also too, for a man, it's such a beautiful thing because it gives the permission, I think, for other men to also access that part of themselves, which sometimes is so numbed down, or sometimes men may feel like, oh, well, I can't show that side of myself. It's too, like, I'm too much or whatever, but you bring it out. And so I love that because, like I said, it just allows, I think, for others to tap into themselves as well in that way. So yeah,
Oh,
it's
thank you.
amazing.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And, I recognize in myself when I'm not coming from that place is generally, and I say generally, there's generalizations are there for
Yeah.
a reason, right? But
Sure.
generally it's because I'm in fear or ego or feeling separation or anxiety, which again kind of goes back to
Yeah.
fear or a want to be, appreciated, loved, or understood, but not knowing if I will, and so trying to step back into that childlike wonder. And like you said, mirroring that out, it's like the most blessing that I can give to myself and to others. So I just
Yeah.
try my dangest to honor that. And
Well,
sometimes
it
it's,
shows. It
oh,
really shows. Yeah, for sure. So thank you for that. So, where can people find you if they want to connect with you, find your books? Where can people track you down?
right here, the raw advantage, my banana symbol, it's
Yeah.
therawadvantage.com is my hub.
Okay.
And I have everything from there. And I mean, I'm on Instagram. I love to share all my stories. It's funny. I do posts and I do reels, but I truthfully find those a little less play than just the regular day-to-day stories. So my stories are the most consistent. I love doing those. I'm on Twitter and I'm on TikTok,
Okay,
but it's
that's
mostly
cool.
repeats, for my Instagram. And I do also just want to mention that I have a free iPhone and Android app that has like 100 free recipes and access to all my books for really inexpensive
Okay.
price. So that's
That's
just the raw
amazing.
advantage as well.
Okay, that's cool. And I'll link everything in the show notes as well so people can track you down. So, thank you. So grateful to connect with you and to hear your story and all that you have to share. So, again, thank you so much for coming on today.
Reciprocated back. I really feel blessed that you invited me on and to connect with
Yeah, of
you
course.
on a more formal level, as close as we can get 2D here,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
to connect with everyone here as well. I just really appreciate that you guys are here on the journey with me and exploring that and learning from others because we all grow together, right? So it's just a
Absolutely.
beautiful, beautiful thing to be on here with you.
Awesome. Okay, Chris, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye.
See you guys.